All right, welcome back. I am your host with co-host Roy. My name is Jaron.
Roy Castillo.
We got a special guest here today.
We do.
But right before we get into that, we are going to actually share a brief moment of what we just experienced a couple weeks ago.
We finally have it ready.
We got it ready. So we're going to give you a quick teaser. We went out to West Point, Mississippi with Mossy, and we are now announcing our full partnership with them. And here is a first minute of the sizzle reel of a 8-minute video that we put together. Enjoy.
Waking up this morning, waking up before it's getting 9. Kinda heavy on my shoulders, tracking down some moments back in time. I could swore that I was in it, down to every minute. Don't know what I was sipping, but I felt like I was doing fine. Oh my.
All right, there we go. You got to see us just ready to put up our display. Go check out the video. We'll put the link below. For our YouTube, and you can kind of see what we did. We went and spent time at the kennels. We also went and spent time with Greg, and he told us about what Mossy Oak, their story.
It was very great being there and seeing how they operate. And it's like we didn't really know until we got there on who we're really working with, and it was awesome.
It was great. So anyways, that's what we did last week. Today we are here sitting with Ajay. Investing with Ajay is your Instagram handle, correct?
That's me.
Dude, I watched a couple of your videos. There's one I'm going to bring up later.
Okay.
But I would love for you to just kind of give a brief intro of who you are, what you're about, and let's hear it.
Let's do it. Yeah. So thanks for the intro. Super pumped to be here, guys. Excited to dive in today. I think your values are sick. A little bit about my background. So first and foremost, I'm a young buck. I got started in entrepreneurship real young, basically fresh out of college. I started in corporate and was bored of it. I got 3-4 months in and was like, man, I have no ability to control my income. Doesn't matter how hard I work. Doesn't matter what results I get. I don't make any more money. This sucks, right? And, people have different stances on money. I'm a capitalist. I'm not going to lie to you guys. And what that means, I think money buys freedom at some level, Sure, it can't buy happiness, but it does buy freedoms for you, for your loved ones, for things you're passionate about, right? And so I wanted to make money. I wanted freedom. That's what America's all about. So fast forward, I stumbled into land just through a YouTube video, believe it or not. Awesome company called RE Tipster, super close with the guy that owns it now. His name's Seth Williams, but stumbled onto one of his YouTube videos, bought his course, listened to a bunch of podcasts. 3 weeks later, I had my first deal. I bought a small lot in rural Wisconsin. And when I say rural, I mean town of 12,000, everybody knows everybody type deal, right? But I bought this piece of crap riverfront lot for $3,500 all in. Sold it for 15 grand in a couple of weeks. Keep in mind, this was peak COVID. Everything was flying off the shelf. But I made some money. I was hooked. And since then, I've grown the business. We're sitting at 7 on staff. I say that slowly because we just hired another one last week, 4 in the Philippines, 3 here in the U.S. And I've got a business partner. His name's Ben. And we've been rocking on and are super pumped about kind of where we're headed.
That's awesome. Well, good for you to capitalize on that and see that opportunity there.
Appreciate it.
So you're new here to Texas.
Yes, sir.
Where'd you move from?
I moved from Chicago.
Chicago.
Yeah.
All right. So why Texas? Why did you pick Texas as your location of like, this is my destination, this is where I want to be at?
Yeah. So for some context, in our land business, we do flip, wholesale, and we're getting into some rural development and entitlement deals right now. What that means is I'll take a big old tract, 60 to 110 acres has kind of been our bread and butter. We've got 3 projects like that under contract right now. And basically we chop them up into smaller pieces of land. We make big land, small land, and sell it to make it more digestible. Kind of like you ever been to Costco, seen those guys buy water bottles, go sell them on the beach. You buy in bulk, you sell in smaller packages, you make a margin. We're doing basically the same thing, but with land. There's a lot of it out here in Texas, over 170 million acres and tons of demand. The economics work out really, really well here. And there's some really good laws that help kind of rural developers. And so it's just a great place to be, better weather, better people, more God, more respect for life. And so I love it here.
It's a definitely different place because it's funny when you said Wisconsin, I'm from Minnesota.
Oh, okay.
And when you talked about rural little towns, I'm like, oh man, I didn't even live in a town. I lived like 10 miles from like a population of like 200.
Oh gosh.
And my neighbor's like a half a mile away basically is how I grew up.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I totally get that when you are it's like a different value system, right? And so when you Texas, different values in a lot of other states. I'm really interested about why did, you delve in about the land part. Why is it so more appealing to you than actual like physical buildings in real estate? Because I can see it, the passion as you're talking. And like, there's a story here of why you're like, you know what? I'm going to stick with the land side.
Yeah.
It's got to be, as I'm picturing this, to me, it feels like there's a lot less headache. Would that be true, you think?
Absolutely true. And I'll tell you too, Jaron, the biggest thing as I was getting started was the barrier to entry. Okay, so keep in mind, I'm a 22-year-old kid. I've got a net worth of $6,000, right?
Yeah. You're like, yes!
Yeah, right. I made it.
I want to buy $1 million worth of land.
Exactly. I'm living in my mom's house. I'm working a W-2, just trying to save up a little bit of money. I've got a hail damaged car that's paid off. I'm trying to do the best with what I can. The thing about real estate is the barrier to entry can be pretty high in some other asset classes. And here's what I mean is, let's say, as I was underwriting apartments, commercial spaces, even just single family flips, right? I've got to go as a 22-year-old with zero real estate experience, go tell whoever I'm raising money to that, hey, this is a good deal. But man, I'm not speaking from experience. Mm-hmm. And so it made me uneasy. Like something in my core was uncomfortable about raising money for an asset that I had negative experience in, let alone life experience, business experience. I just lacked all the experience, right? The barrier to entry to land was so low. I mean, I've got friends that buy lots as cheap as a couple $100. I don't deal with that class of land. It's pretty crappy, to be honest. But what I can tell you is I knew the barrier to entry was low. I knew I had enough money to get started. And so for me, it was an ease thing at first. Now I continue in it, to your point, because I don't deal with tenants, termites, toilets, just people, man. There's not people out there doing dumb stuff. I've never had anybody screw up a property. I did have somebody steal a shed off one recently, but the buyer still bought at the exact same price we had it under contract for. So even when stuff goes wrong, it still goes right with land. And you buy at such a discount because people are emotionally detached to it a lot of times, that it isn't, grandma's house that's being forced out because she can't make payments.
I get that. Yeah.
Right. So less emotion, more margin. I don't have to go see every property. It's a win-win-win.
Dude.
Hey, where do you find these $100 pieces?
I know, like, when he said $100,
I was like, dang, where's that at? That must be like out in the desert that we have here.
Yeah.
West Texas?
Yeah, you can get some out in West Texas. You go out to like a Hudspeth County, for example. You can find some cheap type stuff. It's landlocked. It's crap. Again, I don't buy that stuff. You get it there. You can go to Mojave County, Arizona, Castilla County, Colorado. Those are some pretty common ones. Luna County, New Mexico. So there's these secret, basically, areas where you can get dirt cheap deals.
Were you always passionate in going this direction, or it was just more of like, I see this as an opportunity, I'm gonna just take it? Like, I mean, it looks like you really enjoy this, but like, was it more of like, I want to go this direction, it's kind of hot right now, or like, I really do like this industry, or did you just learn to love it?
Probably more the latter. I learned to love it. And, as I think about the vision of my life, again, guys, I'm 25 today. I turned 26 in 2 months.
Young buck.
I'm a young buck, baby. I'm a young buck.
About to get married too, and we'll talk about that soon.
Yes, sir. And pumped about it. But I'm so young that I know I lack how big the world is, right? Like I only know so much, and every month I'm learning, I'm reading books, watching YouTube, meeting crazy good entrepreneurs like you guys, where I see the world as a little bit bigger. It feels like compounding every month and the opportunities get bigger. What I can tell you is that this is a sales and marketing business. Most of the stuff I get is off market a lot of times. So you send out marketing, cold text messages, cold calls, direct mail, PPC, PPL, it doesn't matter, right? You send out marketing, you work leads, you have a sales process, you get deals, you sell deals. It's the same as payment processing, solar, roofing, houses, it doesn't matter. But sales and marketing businesses are sales and marketing businesses. And what I know is that the skills that I am learning today on how to sell, how to market, how to build teams, right? How to build a culture. That stuff's never going to go away. So it doesn't matter what asset class I'm dealing with, but I'm committed to sticking to one vehicle until I've learned enough skills, have built up my cash nut, and can basically do whatever I want.
So you and me have a history, and that's what brought us together, because you actually came to a live sales training event, the Sales Leadership Summit.
Yep.
We were in Miami up on... I didn't meet you, but a guy named Donnie brought you to me.
Yeah.
And so we were just out in the balcony. We were having a cigar. And so I don't think you were smoking a cigar. You were just hanging out.
Just hanging out.
You were asking a bunch of questions. I'm like, who's this guy asking a bunch of questions? But you're asking some really good questions. And that's what, kept me conversing with you. you asked me for a particular book. And I gave you the book. I think it was like The Psychology of Selling by Brian Tracy. I believe it was that one. And then I told you to read that, and we could talk more about it. And so I was like, this guy's not going to do it. He sends me a text message. Hey, I completed the book. I'm like, what else you got? I'm like, sick. So this guy actually follows through. That's one thing I like about you. So, but you and I, as soon as I found out you moved to Texas, and then I ended up moving back to Texas.
Yeah.
And then just so happened, I was like, hey, I want to bring you on a podcast because we have something growing here. You're very sharp. And then we actually ran into each other again at a networking event last week. It's at with Matt Sapala.
Yep.
And that was cool. I was like, oh man, this is awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. So he was all gung ho to come onto the podcast.
I love it, dude. So one thing I saw is when you were looking at our core values, you were like, yes, dude. So we got God, family, country, canine. That's like,
We actually have it here on our mugs, guys, right
Yeah,
here.
this
These
is-
are not for sale, but these are custom. But shout out to
they all mean something different to everybody. And I would love just to take a few minutes and just kind of go through the fort and just kind of pound it out.
Let's do it.
And so who's God? What is God to you, man?
Yeah, so I'm a Christian. I found Jesus, my faith, at age 16. Went on a mission trip with a nice youth camp. Youth for Christ was the name of the ministry. Went out to the beach, heard the gospel, felt God call my name. Was amazing experience. And as I came back, it was like, okay, what does it mean to commit your life to Jesus? And it's been an awesome journey since. That was 2015, March 17th, 2015. And it's been a really cool journey since. What I can tell you is that I just know God's got big plans for my life. I remember, when I was in college, I had just gone through a breakup, and I promise this story has we'll get back here.
Keep going. I'm loving what I'm hearing.
Yeah. So I just gone through a breakup with this gal. She was super nice gal, nothing wrong with her. It was just that we wanted different lives. Okay. It was weird because we dated pretty much all through college, and we basically realized we wanted very different lives. I wanted, big city, big money, cars, I wanted a big life, right? And it wasn't so much that I wanted to feed an ego, or I don't care about showing off. Like, I'm wearing $30 pants and a $30 shirt, and I buy the same pair of $100 Allbirds on repeat. One gets dirty. You know what I mean? So it's not about showing off as much as it is
Crossing a milestone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. But I wanted a big life, and I knew I wanted to make a big impact, right? And she wanted, white picket fence, 2 dogs, 2 kids, just like regular life. Nothing wrong with that, right? But they're different. Yeah. And so we acknowledged we have different goals for life, and we parted ways. So fast forward, I remember it's college, it's a Friday night. I'm a very social creature, and I just wasn't doing anything, and I just heard God calling me to be still, and so I was, and ended up watching this documentary on human trafficking. Horrible stuff that happens in the world.
You know which one it was by chance?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it was some random one on Amazon Prime, but it made a lasting impression. And I remember just being deep in prayer and asking God, I feel a fire in my heart right now. Is this something you're calling me to? I went to business school for my undergrad. I knew I was going to end up in business in some capacity. And the Lord said no. I was like, no, why do I feel this fire in my heart? Then what does this mean? And God said, listen, if you go work, now, when I say God said, it's not this audible voice in my head, but I hear him speaking to me, right? And he said, if you go work in a non-for-profit, you might make, 40 grand a year, let's call it, right? You can make the impact of one person with 24 hours a day. You go make $40 million. You give away 4 million of it. You can now employ 10 people that day, or you can set up an endowment fund, make sure people are employed for a long time, right? And so God said, I gave you different gifts and talents, and you're going to grow the kingdom in different ways. It's not going to be directly through your labor. It's going to be empowering others to do so, right? And so I have the ability to give. I give to multiple ministries and non-for-profits that I'm very passionate about. Right now, I give tens of thousands of dollars every year. I want to make more money so that I can give hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars a year. And that's exactly why God fires me up, is because he's told me when I'm not working, I'm being selfish. Like, he gave me these gifts. Yeah. What a horrible thing for me to not be using them. Right? Like, I believe I've got the gift of influence, of sales, of persuasion. I have the ability of public speaking. I can command a room, command attention. Why wouldn't I use that for the kingdom? Right? And so, in a nutshell, I know we've only got so much time today. That's a lot of where God lays in my heart, is just, I want to make money, make impact, grow businesses, influence people so that I can make an impact. I'll say one more thing is the Holy Commission in Matthew, right? Go out and make disciples, baptize them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
when I remember I was praying on that once and was like, Lord, what does that mean? What does that mean? And, you know, obviously in the literal sense, it's go make disciples and baptize them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. But there's that word discipleship, right? And I think before Jesus was a disciple of like the rabbinical church, which is what was around back then, he was a disciple of the trades. He was a carpenter with his father, right? Yeah. And so I learned that I have the ability to be a business person that lives with good values, impact everybody that I get to employ, and then also get to work in the next generation of business owners. You know, so I've done some consulting on the side and worked with operators as they're scaling up their land businesses in a really, really limited capacity. But I just know like that's the trajectory, is to empower other entrepreneurs long-term, because again, okay, let's say I go make $40 million a year and I can give that stuff away. Now, let's say I go empower a bunch more entrepreneurs over, right? Again, I'm 25 right now. I got decades in this game. Yeah. Decades and decades and decades. And Gary Vee keeps telling us we're all going to live to like 140. So maybe I've got a century. I don't know. But I know that I'm breathing today and I just want to keep making it happen.
Maybe he has some secret that we don't know. So,
dude, I watched one of the videos I watched of you that I loved. And I just got a big smile. You said something about, you can go make $1 billion and go make a dent in hell. I don't know exactly how you said it, but I was like, I like this guy.
Yeah,
absolutely. I'm like, that's it, man. Like, I actually want to stay on this topic for a minute. Is there's so many believers that are afraid of money because of power and corruption that is associated with a lot of it, because they think that it will corrupt you, but it's not that. It's your heart.
Agreed.
And so what you're talking about and you're passionate about, like, I'm all in, dude. Like, if we're going to go fight the good fight and we're going to be a warrior in his kingdom, you have to go make a lot of money in this world.
Absolutely.
You have to.
It's like being like, I remember reading this, it's being selfish to only make six figures instead of, you know, making millions where you can help and impact other people's lives.
Right.
So like for some people that go and good for them if that's what they want to do. But you know what, if you really want to make an impact, don't be selfish. You know, go out there and see what you're fully made of, and then the path will unveil itself to you.
Right.
Yeah. And what I was saying with this too, I want to hit is like, when I say you have to do it, is if you're called. Exactly. It's not that everyone is called to go make millions and billions of dollars, but if you're called to do that for the kingdom, yeah, you better go do it, because that's part of the thing that God put you on here for.
Absolutely. I think he called those people that aren't called, he's not looking for, you said sheeple at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I remember I was like, you know, like God wants warriors to go out. He's not looking for sheeple that are going to bow down to, you know, this whole COVID thing, I'm just going to poke fun at it. Like, I just was literally in California 2 days ago. I flew back. Dude, there's so many people wearing masks still. And they're living in fear.
I was going to ask you about that.
Dude, it blew my mind. When I landed in San Francisco, I'm like, you guys know this thing was not just like kind of like over. Like, it's been over. And they've been talking about how like it kind of was a scam in a lot of sense. Like, not that it didn't happen, it was real, but like how the verity of like bad it was, they've all come back. It's crazy. And so they're living in fear.
Yeah. And I think I will say, like, money makes you a multiplier for what you are, right? I think if you're generous, you're going to be more generous. And if you operate in fear, you're going to be more fearful, right? I forget the parable. Matt Sapal actually brought it up at the event that we were just at last week about God giving people different gifts, essentially. And did they multiply it? Did they bury it, essentially?
Yeah, it's
right.
I'll say it real quick. It's the talents. So
thank you.
God, he has 3 people and he gives one 10 talents, and he goes out and he doubles it and he makes 20. And then he gives the next guy 3 talents, and that person, you know, gets 6. And then he gives the person 1 talent, and that person goes and buries it. Okay. And then he comes back and said, I've protected your money, gives it to him. He's like, basically, I don't know the exact verse, but it's basically like, almost like you're evil for not doing it, or you're a bad person for not going out and multiplying what I gave you. Right. And he's not referring just to money. It's gifts. It's your purpose. So if you take what you've been given and you hold back and you don't give it out to the world, right, you are being selfish. And so it's a very interesting parable, because he multiplies the people that go multiply their gifts. Absolutely. And multiplies money. And so he takes it away, because he took the guy's one and he's going to give it to the other one.
Yeah. Right.
That's crazy,
isn't it?
Did you grow up with this mindset? Like what'd your parents do? Like how did you come across thinking like, I want to not only think big, but also duplicate and, have this love for, for God and religion and just figuring out your purpose?
Yeah, I wish I could say I grew up this way. I love my mom to death. She is amazing, did an awesome job. We grew up pretty poor. Dad walked out on my family when I was 9, was kind of a messy situation, borderline homeless, moved in with an uncle, failing business, was like really messy for a lot of formative years for me. And what I'll say is I know that, kids cope with trauma in different ways. I know for myself, I just shoved myself into academia. What I knew, well, I guess I didn't consciously know this, but retroactively through some work and stuff, you go through your child self and all this development stuff, right? And I recognized that I couldn't control what was going on at home. I had a lot of changes in a couple of years, but I could control me at school and I could control my success at school. And so from an early age, I took massive accountability for myself, right? And I just knew I could control me. By age 10, 11, I was making my own doctor's appointments, setting up things for myself. It needed to get done, right? And I love my mom, bless her heart. Probably 10.
10?
Yeah.
What 10-year-old does that? I don't have it. Do you know? Alasso, did you start making doctor's appointments for yourself? No.
I don't even know if he's ever been to the doctor.
It was one of those things where I knew I needed to get my checkups every so often. I'd make the phone call. I knew I needed to get a prescription because I've got asthma and I need my inhaler, and I'd pay attention to the expiration date. And it was just, I had to be accountable to myself. You just are kind of forced to grow up. And again, my mom did everything she could. She did her best. I hold no resentment towards her, but she did operate out of scarcity, unfortunately, a lot of times because we didn't have a lot for a long time. And so I've had to undo a lot of that brain work over the past half decade or so. And I know we were just talking about people in masks and stuff. That whole period of COVID was actually one of the best things that could have ever happened to me for my age. And here's why. Is I graduated college. This was 2020. So we're, what year is it? 24?
Yeah. 2024.
We're 4 years in, right?
Welcome to April 2024.
Yeah. It's going by quick.
It's going quick.
It's going by quick, and I love it. But what I know is in COVID, I'll tell you guys, I grew up in Southern Indiana. So you mentioned small towns. I grew up in Bloomington, Indiana, which is a college town. Okay. But 20 minutes outside, similar stuff. Place. Right. Yeah. So really cool spot to grow up in. However, moved up to Chicago during COVID because my family had moved up there. I was born in that area. So we had some family up there, but basically had no friends. Right. And so COVID happened. No social events are going on. Everyone's weird about who you're around. This is early on. Right. What that meant for me is I had a couple of things I could dive into. My faith, fitness, business. That's pretty much it. I had my 9 to 5, but it had all that work-life balance crap that people try to push today. And so I was working, 25 hours a week because work remote. You've got no water cooler talk. Yeah. You've got no distracting lunches. You've got none of that stuff. So guys, I'm working 25 hours a week and I'm a workaholic. What am I going to do? You can only work out so many hours a day, right? I would go for a walk, a bike ride, lift some weights, whatever. You can only do that so many hours a day, right? I would read books. I would listen. I was doing 2-3 audibles every single week during that, walking, biking, all that type of stuff. But I needed to push something forward. And so it ended up serving as an incubator for me to basically figure out, when am I optimal in terms of deep work? Oh, got it, in the mornings.
I like that terminology,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I had this incubation period where I learned habits that served me, where I learned what I'm truly passionate about, where I tried to dive into who am I? And I'm still figuring a lot of that stuff out. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure you guys are too at some level, right?
Yeah.
You never fully know.
No, I mean, I'm 38 and still figuring things out.
Totally.
So I got a few more years. I have a certain goal by 40.
Okay.
That I definitely want to have a lot of it figured out, but I'm still excited for the journey.
Absolutely. Gary Vee says you got another 100, man. So
there you go.
But that's where I dove into a lot of that stuff. And I'll tell you too, we met through, Patrick Bet-David's ecosystem. Yep. I love PBD. He's actually the first business influencer I stumbled into. I heard him, I think, on Bigger Pockets. Because again, I was a real estate guy, right?
Yeah. You know Bigger Pockets.
I know Bigger Pockets. I know Bigger Pockets. So my buddy
that
shares your name.
It's a real estate thing.
Okay.
Yeah, they're
not real estate here.
They're my buddy that has your same name actually used to work for them as well. So we've got some mutual friends in the ecosystem and stuff, and great work that they're doing. But it's a huge real estate podcast, blog, YouTube channel, everything, right? And PBD was going on his podcast circuit, basically marketing his new book at the time. It was Your Next 5 Moves.
Yep.
I had heard it and was like, oh my God, this guy's incredible, right? And so then, of course, I pop into his YouTube. I start watching some of his older videos, a lot of his how-tos, 2 minutes with Pat. That was never 2 minutes, and getting deeper and deeper into it. Sure enough, the almighty ads figured out, hey, you're watching the channel, we're going to retarget you. Mm-hmm. I went to the my first vault in would have been 21, I think. So September of 21. 21,
yeah, 21 because they didn't do it in 2020. Yeah.
Correct, right? So, it It was what was going on in 2020?
Not much, but
yeah, right. So this is where I really started on my journey, though, and I'll tell you, I went really aggressive in coaching, really, really aggressive. I had 2 or 3 real estate mentors. I've got a life coach I've been working with for over 2 years. It's helped me undo a lot of this brain work. A lot of books, the classics like Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Think and Grow Rich. And, as you go on and on in business, you get deeper and deeper kind of into more niche stuff. So now let's talk about some psychology. Let's talk about some sales training. Let's talk about how do I lead a sales team. Recently was reading through Jordan Belfort's book, The Way of the Wolf. It was actually fascinating. I thought, everybody's watched the movie, right? The Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
Not the most Christian movie ever.
No, it's not.
Maybe. But what I will say is what I've always admired about Jordan is even as a probably teenager or young adult, when I first watched that movie, I said, wow, this guy scaled up a sales team with basically no marketing spend because they had this cold prospect list that they were able to go outbound on, create a sales process and scale rapidly through commission-only salesmen. He's basically de-risked a way to grow the business, which is pretty sick. And there's other ways to do that. But even as a 19, 20-year-old, I saw that. And that's what I admired about him. And so fast forward when I'm, actually growing sales teams now, I read his book and it was very, very tactical. Has almost nothing to do with all the tomfoolery you see in the movies. Yeah. Very tactical, practical. So it's interesting as you go on.
I never finished it. So.
Do you know, me and you have a lot of the same story here.
Okay.
This is hilarious.
Yeah?
Yeah. I'm 36, so I'm a decade older, but basically what you said is the same kind of thing how I got into it. Read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich. I found Pat when he started.
That's awesome.
With 3,000 subs on YouTube.
Wow.
I was like one of the OGs.
Wow.
And so I followed him for the longest time, and I'll tell you a funny story, not on here, out there, but
no, we'll keep this on the
keep it out
side
there.
table.
Yeah, but so dude, what you're talking, I'm like laughing inside, and I just went through the books, and I was finding, and then you get to the point when you're like, okay, it's not just sales marketing, it's leadership. It's about how do I grow too? Like I can learn all these tricks and trades and like how to do things, but at the end of the day is like, if you want to be, and you're going to get this. Like, I don't want to be a solopreneur.
Right.
I want to be an entrepreneur.
Totally.
And they are totally different things.
Different skill sets, different lifestyles, everything.
So I started reading different kind of books. I did all the business books, and then I started reading leadership books.
Right.
Because I needed a different skill set to actually build a team, and they're 2 different things.
Right.
Running a company and being a leader is different than knowing how to market and sell.
Right.
And most people, they don't know there's a difference when they're getting started. But so I appreciate your story because I'm smiling like, dang, we did a lot of the same thing doing there.
So I didn't go down that same traditional road as you guys.
Traditional?
That's not traditional.
I'm teasing you, Roy. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that I was a guy that grew up, I hated reading. Like I always thought so I skirted through high school. I just kind of did the bare minimum. I grew up thinking like I'm not very smart, but also, speaking of books, thanks to the book Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, my blueprint, because in the book it talks about your financial blueprint, what you grew up with as far as like money and how do you overcome that barrier, those levels. And so also it goes back to I relate that a lot to your life, meaning like what did you grow up seeing? I grew up seeing my parents, stay-at-home mom. My dad was a 9-to-5er. Type of guy, and he worked hard, and so that's one thing I love about my pops, that he worked his ass off, and so I took that same mentality, but I never saw it as an opportunity for me to develop myself until I actually came across PBD, and he had me read that book, and then now because of that book, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, that's one of those books I read at least once a year, and it helps me get past those certain barriers of the way I think, because I can also sabotage myself. Whenever I'm thinking like, am I soaring too high? And then you're just like, you start, how like you're flying and all of a sudden you stop believing like, oh, I'm going a little too high. And then you got to get over that.
Right.
You can keep going as far as you want.
Right.
And so that book has really helped.
I love that. And I think, one of the concepts that I'm really excited and passionate about in the season of my life is basically what cash can do for you. Essentially, I think as you get further and further in business, you realize what liquidity serves and how as businesses mature, like a lot of them go into like the New York Stock Exchange for access to liquidity, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why sales and marketing businesses can be so great, because if you can capture cash back with a pretty quick, inventory turnover on your money, you're able to scale a lot faster. Like money's really, really powerful, and something that this is a newer concept for me, like the past 4 months or so, where I'm recognizing that to scale fast, you really need to know hiring and leadership, right? Because if I had unlimited money, hypothetically, or at least just let's call it enough, right? Yeah. So access to a couple $1,000,000 for hiring. You can bring in people that know how to scale businesses, that know sales and marketing better than you, that know leadership better than you, and they can run the functions that you need them to achieve what you need them to. I think Alex Hormozi says to make $1 billion, you don't need to know how to make $1 billion. You need to know how to hire a team that knows how to make $1 billion.
Yeah, you don't want to be the smartest person in the room.
Never.
That's the death right there.
Right.
Yep.
Absolutely. So it's exciting me in this new season as I'm diving into a lot of these books you're talking about.
Yeah, dude. That's how I learned a lot, is just reading and listening to podcasts. So I drive around in a truck all day. 5 hours was what I did with my 9 to 5 while I was building some businesses. And I listened to as many leadership and business books as I could get my hands on. And what I was saying earlier, though, is like, once I started learning, like, oh, the skill I want to learn is leadership. I want to learn how to guide people, how to teach people, how do you capture a room? How do you walk it? Like, those are the things from a scalability that you can go make a lot of money.
Right.
And people will actually, like, they have to follow you, right? So the one definition I learned in all these books, there's only one thing that makes you a leader, is people will follow you. That's it. Mm-hmm. If no one's following you, you are not a leader. And so people get really hung up on learning this skill or learning how to do this or this.
All the titles too.
But it's your character, it's your integrity, it's, are you trusting? Like, in titles, titles is a big one. Like, you can have any title you want in any company, it does not make you an actual leader.
Nope.
This is something, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. So I observe a lot of people when they're in leadership, and I'm going to give you a scenario, and I'm going to see if you've ever seen this.
Oh boy.
No, it's very intriguing. So, like, say you're in a room of 10 people, okay? And there's someone that's the predominant leader on paper, and whether this is an organization or, like, say you're out at the park, you're doing something, and what they say, it's not controversial, but it's kind of edgy. And they're like, I don't know if we should follow this or not. And everybody just sneakily looks to one person like this with their eyes, and they wait for that one person to see if they're going to go. And then that person goes, okay, because that's who the real leader is. Have you ever seen anything like that?
I'm sure I have. I can't think of a specific situation off the cuff, but I can imagine the scenario.
You'll see that in, like, different companies that have hierarchies, and that's where you'll see certain hierarchies, but everyone knows who's actually the boss, who's actually leading.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, like, well, you have the boss, but who's the lead? Like, who are they going to follow?
Exactly.
So, like, it's like, I look at it, like, I just use military terms because this is the easiest way to do it. Is you have generals, right? And they're going to send the commands. But then you'll have, like, a captain, and the people under the captain, they're going to be like, yo, what are we doing? Yeah. Like, we just got an order, like, we're going to follow you, right? Like, you're our leader. Right. And so that captain has to choose, what are they going to do? Like, and you see it in some movies sometimes where, like, the captain will kind of go rogue. Yeah. And then everyone follows the captain. Yeah. Because they're like, no, we're loyal to that. Like, so I think that's what's interesting on leadership that I've noticed in the last 4 or 5 years is I'm in rooms or I'm observing things, and I'm like, dang, that guy's actually, or that woman's not the leader of this group. It's this person over here. And I'm watching as things are going on month after month, or, you know, year after year, and I'm seeing them, like, they're looking who to follow, and they're waiting for that person to give them the okay. Right. And it's not the person with the title. And and now that I said this, you'll notice this as you go. It's really interesting. Absolutely. And so once I started noticing this, I was like, wow, your influence, and you said this earlier, you want to have influence, right? Your influence, and, you know, we're going to go build kingdom stuff, and we're going to follow Jesus Christ. Amen. He is giving you the position to have influence. Are you going to waste it? Right. No, right? Absolutely not. You're not. And I can see it in you. You're definitely not.
I mean, that's why he's here too. I mean, he could have easily told us, no, I'm not going to do it. Cause I mean, I'm sure you have like a bunch of other properties that you can go, you have to go search on, but you're like, no, this is important.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
I just know the more of these that I get to do and talk to some smart people, more eyeballs that'll get to see this and ideally learn something from the conversation. Excuse me. You know, I'll tell you, right now, I don't sell any consulting services or anything really. Again, I've done some stuff on the side, but it's not like I've got some big old coaching thing I'm selling right now. I've been doing a lot of podcasts specifically on some sales training and some leadership and some stuff like that on the circuit. And I've had dozens and dozens of people reach out to me and tell me, dude, I did what you said and I made money and I got this deal and I did that. And I'm like, dude, that's why I'm doing this, right? Because again, if I can go empower other leaders to make action and make things happen. The consequence of good business is money, right? And now we can go use that for the kingdom. It's a tool, right? Yeah. And so I think on this concept of leadership, what's so interesting is that there's an element of respect, I think is what you're talking about as well, right? Like when they go look, when the company is looking at the general instead of, or excuse me, the, I'm forgetting, yeah, thank you, the captain instead of the general, there's a respect factor there because you've been in the foxhole with these guys. And so they know, hey, dude, like you understand our pain, you're relatable. You tell me what to do, right? Which is where I think a lot of business leaders, especially like there's like this mid kind of size of like a $500,000 to like 10 million in revenue, this type of leader that like won't get on the front lines, you know, won't get back down and dirty into the business, where I think some of the staff starts to be like, okay, you in your ivory tower can tell me what to do, but dude, you don't know what I'm facing today. Yeah. You don't know what it's like to go on appointments. You don't know what it's like to talk to sellers right now. You don't know what it's like to talk to buyers, right? And so to maintain that respect, you got to be in it sometimes. Now there's seasons for things and you have to scale out of things. And obviously there's a hierarchy to leadership for a reason, right? But I just know with my staff, you know, unfortunately on my staff, it's I don't want to say like I'm the smartest guy in the room, but it's, you know, I've hired down to train up essentially in order to have, let's call it cheaper talent. Right. Yeah. And so, because of that, a lot of times if they've got a situation, they'll go to my business partner, Ben, first, cause he's more of the day-to-day operator. And then anything he can't answer comes to me, or if it's more sales related, it'll come to me. But there's multiple times where it's a difficult situation and I'm able to navigate through just fine.
Yeah. You got to be able to show, you got to be able to flex your knowledge and what you're able to do. It's just like that book, Lincoln on Leadership. You know, he's always constantly circling among the troops. He's never, he's up delegating and doing what he needs to do, but he also comes down and talks to who's the men on, on the front line, because they're the ones that are there. Exactly. And so you just go up there and you find out, and that's how, again, you got to be able to do what you say you're going to do and never put anyone in a position that you're not willing to do yourself.
Right.
Yeah, man. So we've spent a lot of time on this. I want to hit one more thing on family, and we'll just leave the other two off.
Let's do it.
We only can get so much in, but you said that you're going to be getting married. Dude, that's exciting, man.
Thank you.
How'd it go down? Like, how'd you meet your fiance here? And I'd love to hear a story.
Yeah, absolutely. So we met senior year of college in Indiana, actually. And it was fate. We joke a little bit because it's kind of a goofy story. She worked at a theater at the university and basically was like playing a game with some friends after while eating lunch and ended up late to class on like the third week. Only seat available was in the front row. I was sitting in the second row. That happened to be the day we made groups, right? It was, hey, turn around. That's your group for the semester, right? So she ends up late. She was a back row kind of gal because she didn't love the class. I was a nerd, guys. Like, it was a business strategy class, like classic entrepreneur. I would eat this stuff up. You know what I mean? This is like, these are the articles you read for fun, right? Where you're like, oh, business case study, kind of like Tom Ellsworth segments where we just like dive into business. You know what I mean? It's that esque of stuff. And so I was loving it back in college. Strong second row guy. She sits front row. That's the day we make groups. And I just remember when I was getting to know, her name is Erin. When I was getting to know Erin, I kept thinking to myself, I don't know if I'm interested in her romantically, but I just know I want to get to know her better. Okay. Right. And it was like, I just wanted to be around her and I just wanted to understand her. And I just enjoyed being around her. She was funny. She was witty. That's super important to me. I'm like really quick and goofy with jokes and I need somebody that can keep up with me. And so when I saw that in her, I was like, I like being around her.
She's in quick. Sales?
She's not actually.
She's not.
No, she just is.
She sounds like she would be a natural in it.
You'd think she's more of an introvert and really doesn't. Yeah, she doesn't like the uncomfortable conversation side of things. It's funny, man. Every relationship I feel like has opposites, but
yes.
Not doubting that she could be good at it. She would just need to go through a lot of reps like the rest of us, right? But she's really smart and relatable and funny. She's just also an introvert. She's an accountant right now, and who knows how long, but she's an accountant with Ernst & Young, so big old corporate company. We're like on opposite career paths right now. But so we met in college and hit it off and shared faith and wanted the same things out of life. And what's funny is coming out of that previous breakup, I remember we were like week 3 into dating. And guys, I've never been a casual dater. Like I've never, high school, college, I met her in college, so there wasn't any dating after that really. But I just was never like a date 3 girls at the same time, go do this, that, like mess around. I was never like a casual. It's just not my thing, right? I like deep relationships in everything, friendships, business relationships, staff, doesn't matter.
That's also strong to your character as well. So
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. As we were diving in, I said to her, Erin, we're in week 3 of dating. I said, hey, I just want you to know, I'm not talking to any other girls, right? I want to get to know you better. Number 2, let's talk values, right? So this is funny because this is before I knew PBD, but he talks about values all the time. I was like, listen, like I am a big mama's boy. Again, mom took care of us when things were difficult. I'm blessed enough that I get to financially support her a bit now. Not a ton, but enough, right? A couple $1,000 every month, every time I see her. It's awesome stuff that I get to do now because she helped me when, you know, when stuff was really tricky. I said to her, I'm going to take care of my mom as long as I'm financially able. If we go down this path, you know, bank accounts become one. I want you to know this is a non-negotiable for me, right? Number 2, if you're not following Christ, non-negotiable, right? We're done. No hard feelings, but that's it, right? She was already a believer, already following Christ, so it wasn't an issue. Number 3, I want a big life. Remember how this tied in from earlier, right? I want a big life. Private jet, cars, big brand, big name, on stages, talking to a lot of people, shaking hands, lots of travel. I will not be home for dinner every night. If that's what you need out of a partner, I'm not your guy, right? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm intentional in all areas of my life. I will make time for you. I will make sure our relationship's a priority. Should we get married, marriage will be a priority. But I just want you to know, do not ask me to give up on my dreams, right? She was on board. Fast forward, it's just gotten better and better.
What was her expectations? I'm pretty sure since you laid that out, she also had some stuff to herself.
She did, you know, and it was a lot of the same stuff. A lot of core values based on family. Like, hey, family's really important to me. I understand. You know, it was a lot of the stuff we had talked about. There wasn't anything crazy in there. It was like, can we get a couple of dogs? I was like, hey, Canine, let's get settled down.
Make sure we get her set up on all that.
Right. Yeah. I've already told her about the company. I said, babe, I got supplements for us. As soon as we've got the dogs, we're going to make sure this thing lives 140, just like us and Gary Vee.
That's right. I do gotta say, I really want to give you a compliment of most young men, especially in their 20s, do not lay out what they want for their life going into a relationship, especially a marriage. And that's going to make things very difficult for people that don't do that. So for you to do that and lay out, be like, hey, this is what I want to go do in life, it is so important. And you don't have to know to go get married, but when you know and you're going to go find that partner to be with, it makes it so much easier when the hard times come, because things are going to come up and you've already had those talks. You've set expectations, and so it can't be held over you later. Because imagine you didn't say any of this,
right? And
you go get your private jet, and you're like, I didn't want this life,
right?
Where did this come from?
Yeah,
dude, that's not a conversation you want to have 15 years, 10 years into your marriage.
Absolutely not.
Because some people don't want that life,
right?
And they're like, well, I thought we were just going to make $500,000 a year.
Sure.
I don't want the life of making 10 million a year or like 100 million. Like,
right?
It's a different life.
It is.
It's a totally different life. So I applaud you for knowing what you want in life and saying it to your future spouse that you're engaged to.
And these are things that you and I talk constantly about, because we want to set that expectations for our kids. And I know you don't have kids yet.
Not yet.
But we're constantly talking about this.
This is a whole nother podcast, by the way. I would love to have you back and talk about values, morals, and family and relationships. I love this topic, by the way.
Yeah. Me too.
I love it. This is a big one. Like, that's part of the core. Like, what is family? It's not just your blood. It's like the morals and values of how you live.
And that's one of the things that we drive huge, being part of All American Canine, is that we're all about the family. We want our kids around this brand, this community that what we're building here. And it's just because you could easily get away from that, and then the other family members start to fall apart.
Right.
Whereas we are like, no, this is part of our core values.
Right.
And, we got to make sure family's together, because if you guys are good, then the company's good.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, family is not mutually exclusive from any of the other core values, right?
No.
And so, like, number one, I think it is so like blessed, right? Like what a blessing to be able to start a family. Obviously we don't have kids, and God forbid we have any fertility issues, but like, we want a big family, right? Like we always say 4 to 6 kids. We're just going to kind of keep it going, maybe see how many God will let us have, and just let the machine run, right?
Man, I just do hope if you have this type of mentality that you birth as many kids as you guys can, because we need more people like you teaching these values to other kids. So kudos to you.
Thank you, Roy. And something I say to a lot of my friends, I have some successful friends that don't want kids, and I'm like, dude, I almost think it's like a calling to have kids if you're a good person of society.
Go back to being selfish. That's that selfish mentality.
Right. Again. I mean, you hear people say like, oh, well, the world's so screwed up. And I'm like, okay, so you're gonna let them have kids, you're gonna
You're just putting up your white flag right now, man.
Exactly, right? And I heard this expression once, and I can't remember where it comes from. I feel like I heard it in a sermon in church once. That was, evil only wins when good does nothing. So you think the world's going to crap? Raise up the next generation, dude.
Yeah.
Go be part of the solution. Don't just accept the problem. Right?
So there's going to be a lot on your shoulders here, man. He's got this. He's got this.
He's got some fun stuff. We've done some fun stuff, huh? What'd you think of that trip we went out to Colorado when you turned 13?
I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. We did a boy, like his journey from boyhood to manhood.
Oh, okay.
I went out took him to Colorado Springs for a week with both grandpas.
Okay.
My dad and his mother's dad. And we got to spend a week just talking about fun stuff. A little awkward at times.
He said we already went through this once. I don't want to do it again.
That was a highlight reel right there.
The whole point too of it is though, like when you're building a family, like especially men, like you have a son, like you can't shelter him from the world, from everything, and you got to prepare him.
He's going to see it one way or another.
I got 2 other kids. He's got 2 brothers, and the next one, he just turned 12. So he just turned 12 in March. So one more year, we're going to go on his trip, and when they hit 13, we're going to do a boyhood to manhood trip.
That's awesome.
And
I appreciate you sharing that story, because my son's 5, and we're going to totally do something like that too.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's awesome.
I think everybody should do it. Even like if I had a girl too, I just have 3 boys, but I think even like and I think we talked about this, and Alasso didn't get to experience this yet on his birthday, but around it of like, you know, the wife or the mother should do something with their son too, and the father should do something with their daughter, because each one has something they can give to their daughters and their sons differently.
Yes,
absolutely.
Now, like, it's a huge thing in society, and this is why it's such a pillar, is because society and the enemy, Satan, Lucifer, you know, whatever his name is, the deceitful one, he's destroying the family, because if you destroy the family and you go after the core, then you fall.
Right.
You take out a mother out of a family that can't raise it, or a father, and there's only one parent, it's harder. It doesn't mean it can't happen, but when your society is raised,
statistically, it's against you. Yes.
Yeah, but it's not saying that it can't work. It's what it's saying is when you try to build relationships up where you're like, oh, get married, oh, I don't like it, or we're out 3-4 years later and you have a kid, you do that so many times, you're going to run into issues. Basically, what I say to everybody is everything you do has a consequence, whether it's good or bad. And so, like, if you're going to destruct the family,
right,
which they're doing, they're pushing it all over media, all over movies. You know, like they're making fun of men like crazy right now.
Yeah.
Our world is more feminine.
It's going to get
than
tougher.
It has ever have been. And there's a balance.
Which is why it's important that strong men are talking to each other and working in tribes.
Find that community. That's
absolutely.
right.
Absolutely.
That's why I had that guy Trevor meet us out there to that event, because he wasn't part of a community.
I was going to just bring his name up.
Yeah,
we had this conversation with him.
Yeah. And as soon as he was out there, I introduced him to some people. He's like, Roy, thank you. Thank you so much for bringing me.
Dude, do you remember what he said when you asked him? Do you just say what you asked him again about where does he go?
Yeah, I asked him simply that, you know, who do you have conversations with about, because he's very much into business.
Okay.
Like, who do you have to talk to about these issues? You know, because sometimes you just can't talk to just anyone. You have to find, like, what community do you have? And he goes, I have none of that. And I was, very shocked and I love his mindset, and I was very impressed with him. And then this guy's going to go much farther now. He sees the value in networking.
Yeah, because he has people coming to him all the time. But I was so shocked, and he's like, I don't got anybody. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't imagine that. Because that's also part of family. It's your community.
Oh, absolutely.
We got to do a podcast with Ajay and Trevor with us here.
Dude, that'd be great.
That would be a good one.
I think that would be a really good one.
Yeah,
I love the whole family aspect.
Me too.
Well, Ajay, it was great for having you come in. Unless you have anything you want to hit.
Last thing I want to say, because we're talking about with marriage specifically, is that I know we're wrapping up here, but like, gosh, I just want to hit this home for anybody that's listening to this. Is guys, like, marriage is a covenant between you and God. It is not just between man and wife. And when people remove the God out of it, that's when you see the divorce. That's when you see the cheating. That's when you see all the bad stuff that comes from it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, marriage is not supposed to be easy, but neither is anything worth doing in life. growing a business, having kids, marriage, none of that stuff's easy. Would you guys agree?
100%.
Right? It's not supposed to be. We weren't called to have easy lives. Nowhere in the Bible does it say we're supposed to have
We were just talking about
easy lives.
doing hard things
Right.
last week.
So my point just being, don't take God out of marriage. Like I think marriage outside of divine blessing should just be called a civil union. Like if your intention is not to get married as a covenant with God, you know, like, man, call it something else, because marriage is a covenant. It is given by God.
Can I drop the mic?
Not my phone. That's the wrong mic.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole point. It's that covenant with the relationship. Dude, you just hit it so good. And most people go get married because it's just the thing to do, and they're not doing it for the actual reasons of why it was created.
Right.
That's why a lot of it fails too.
Totally.
You're just doing it on obligation. So, dude, we're going to have you back if you want to come back, and we're going to hit this topic crazy, because I got so many questions I want to ask, but we could go for another hour on that one. We're already at an hour, basically. Almost.
Man, that's quick.
It went by quick. So, dude.
Ajay, thank you, man, for being here.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Appreciate you guys having me.
And
Go
it's
check
Assets for Acres by Ajay. Go and find him on, what's your handle?
Investing with Ajay on
Investing
Instagram.
with Ajay. We'll put that in the link at the bottom of the video. So thank you so much. Guys, I guess we'll wrap up. Jaren?
I got one last thing.
Go ahead.
Is we're going to tell you about All American Canine real quick here at the end. This is the sponsor of the show. You can go down and you can see we have our weight gainer. We have paw balms, probiotic, hip and joints. These products are all natural and are to help your dog live longer. And so we have a first-time code. You can use AAC15 for 15% off. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
All
thanks
right.
for coming in, and you'll be back, it sounds like.
I'll be back.
All right.